Add you to the stage.
There we are. Okay. Hello, this is Keith with How to Build Your Own Home. This is every Thursday live from 5 to 6 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. I have some good information for you, some kind of a trick of the trade that I want to share with you tonight. But I want to talk about why are there bad general contractors? And I don't think that they're born bad. I just think we allow them to be that way, and we actually kind of feed them to being bad. And what does it mean to be bad? It means to not really know what the real system, process, and costs are involved in building what you want. And so it really begins with the first time you meet, the very first time. And I had 3 phone calls this week, and every single one of them asked me, can you build me a casita? Can you build me a garage? Can you build this? And I said, and they said their main question was, what will it cost to build a 200 square foot casita or a 400 square foot garage? It's the number one question that they ask is, what will it cost? And I said, well, do you have any plans? Do you know? Do you have any soils? No. Do you have any engineering? No. And I tell them my process, and then they say, thank you. I've mentioned this before a couple of times, but it's really bad. And what they're wanting is for me to tell them what they want to hear. And if you keep calling people on the phone, I don't care if they're an electrician or a framer, constantly asking them, what will it cost? And you don't have any specifications. You don't have anything to ask them. You're gaming for a bait and switch. You're going to eventually get somebody who's going to tell you what you want to hear, and then you're going to engage in a relationship with that person, and then you're going to be up a creek without a paddle. So it begins there. It begins at that very moment in time. Excuse me. I was going to sneeze. Whoa. There's a dusty cloth here. I wiped off something that I wanted to show you here. So I put it in my face, and I should have put it in my face. And so I've seen this over and over and over and over and over again, is that we are not clear on what we really, really want. For example, I got a text from a client, and it's the 3rd time this client has tried to reach out to me. I got a budget, full vision, gave the budget, all the diagrams, everything. That's not too much. We tossed it. We went through the whole process again with a different vision, whole budget, the whole 9 yards. Took me a lot of time to do that. That's just too much. And she kind of led me on about, well, don't worry about it. We want to make a great vision. We got the money. Don't worry about it. And then it got, ixnayed. And I think a lot of it has to do with we are not clear in our minds about what we want, because we are really not clear about what the cost is for what we really want. And those two things are very rarely in simpatico, meaning that they're very rarely in perfect harmony. What something really costs and what we really, really want. And we can think and imagine all these things we want, but getting a real understanding of the cost, we don't want to listen to that, or we don't want to go through the process, or we don't want to cough up a little bit of money in advance just to get the design or specifications in order to get the cost for that thing that we want. And there's a little bit of cost. It's like if you want to start business, you want to start a hot dog stand, okay? You're going to have a source of heat, source of cooking, maybe some refrigeration to keep certain condiments cool, just a little cart, maybe what it may be, and maybe some licensing and certification, whatever it may be. There are things you have to do before you can actually sell a hot dog. It's the same thing with a home. There are things you actually have to do before you can actually start to build that home, because you have to do it within the confines of your cost. You have to do it within the confines of a lot of things, but cost is the biggest confine. The second one is time. And quality is the thing you're always trying to shoot for. And so I wanted to bring this up and really help people understand. Stop asking what something costs. All right. You want to find out what you can qualify for. Then you want to find out what you can build for what you qualify for, or how much money you have, and then what can you build for that. And don't ask a builder that question either. I've got, $250,000. What can I build for that? That's not the right question to go after either, because you're getting another bait and switch situation as well. What you really want to do is take the First Steps course. And I'm sorry, but this is a real big pitch for that course. You have to take that entire course, especially module number 3, and go through the process of really finding out what the real close approximation is for the cost per square foot for doing something in your area, building something in your market. Once you go through that process and like realtors know basically what a home can sell for, either a resale home or a new construction home. They're on top of that market almost daily, 24/7, and it changes within a week. It's kind of like a soap opera. You don't have to be there every day. You just have to watch the Friday episode and you catch up. Oh, you now know where everything is. Well, realtors are the same way. They know because they're touching that market on a weekly basis, even on a daily basis. But on a weekly basis, you're seeing where things are moving and changing constantly. And it's the same thing with builders, constantly seeing where prices and things are. And so they can really kind of help you, figure out what the cost per square foot is. Well, you don't have that experience. You're not in the market. You're not in the field. You're not in the trades. You're not in those things. So that formula in module 3 helps you with that. It helps you get past that to help you understand. And the more times you do that exercise in module 3, the closer you're going to get to what would be an average cost per square foot for something in like comparison in your market. And do that a couple of times and you're going to be on top of it. Now, I wish I could just take in my brain and give to my students, okay, this is a cost per square foot for painting, and this is typically the cost per square foot for install of this flooring versus this flooring and versus tile. I know the cost per square foot of roofing and total framing with or without the garage in some markets, but you don't have that. So you have to actually, this is the thing you need to get full immersion on. And it's kind of like if you wanted to change a career and try something different, and you see that this career path is an opportunity for you, then you're gonna have to get immersed in that. One of my biggest experiences I had is I was working in higher education, and I was an admissions advisor, teacher, ambassador. I was doing a lot of hats at a higher institution of learning, which I won't mention the name of locally here in my town, because they changed the name to fit certain parameters. Anyway, I left that institution, left that career after 4 years, long story, and I worked for a nonprofit housing organization. When I got there, they didn't have my site ready for me to start building. I was a site supervisor. So they just put me in a desk and told me to just wait around. And I started looking at the files, looking at things. And pretty soon I started to realize things weren't being paid. I opened up the drawer and there's these invoices all over the place. It was a mess. It was an absolute mess. Then they made me construction manager over all the projects because they fired the construction manager because nothing was getting paid and nothing was being inspected properly. And then a month later, they made me program director over the whole thing. So within 3 months period time, without any experience in construction management, I was over $10 million in building affordable housing. Within 3 months, I had that put on my shoulders. So the neat thing is, I was taught by my father to be critical thinking and to have organization and whatnot, but I didn't have any construction management background at all. So I started to break things up into compartments. I started to create clipboards and checklists, and it was not fun. It took me about a year to finally get my head wrapped around the whole system, the whole process. We were on a probationary status. The grants were shut down. We couldn't move forward. There's no money coming into the nonprofit. Well, within a year and a half's time, we got off that probationary status. We got grants reactivated, and money was coming back into the nonprofit. but I learned a ton. I mean, I learned more in those 3 years building 63 homes in 3 years' time than I have in just about any other time. And I keep pulling from that experience because it was a nightmare. It was scary. I were working long hours. I was on job sites doing things that were not done. So I figured out a lot of things by sheer baptism by fire. I mean, it's full on immersion. And when you immerse yourself in a trade, or you immerse yourself into construction, a lot of it is sitting down and looking at cost projections, not cost projections, but looking at bids, looking at the actual. And I sat down and I realized that I looked back in the past 5 years, every single home was over budget by an average of $16,000, which means all these families had to have a second mortgage, or they have to do some funky financing. It was not fun, but it was happening over and over again. So I said to myself, okay, the next budget that comes around, I'm going to sneak an additional 16,000, almost 20,000 into the budget. And I did. And I padded it. And I learned this lesson from a restaurant I used to work at called Daniel's Restaurant in Southern California. And the maitre d' would constantly take reservations and overbook. And therefore, we couldn't meet the needs of the customers because we were overbooked. The kitchen was slammed, service was terrible, and people walked out with a terrible recommendation. So a wise captain, that's what we called him, a captain. Then there's waiters and runners, but he was a captain. And he was a very, very smart waiter from Honolulu, Hawaii. And he came over here to the mainland to work. And he came over to the stand, and I wrote this in one of my books. He came over to my host stand, and he put in some names on the reservation book, and he would put a dot by these names. And the maitre d' was out there. He didn't see what we were doing, and he whispered in my ear, and he said, "This is quality control." So I, from then on, started to put in fake names for reservations with a small little dot. Sometimes I put a star by it. I would put something by it, but the maitre d' didn't know. So when he got a phone call for somebody to take a reservation, it's overbooked. He says, he was forced into a corner. He couldn't take any more reservations. So each night thereafter, things ran smoothly. So I referred back to that experience, and I said, how can I make things run smoothly? So I really injected more money into the budget. I added more money in contingency over here. I added more money over here, and we were satisfied. And as a result, thereafter, all my homes were under budget. And that's called baptism by fire. But I leaned on something in the past to help me out, and that's that quality control. Where are you going to put dots in your budget? Where are you going to put things in your budget so that you know you're going to be taken care of? And if you're going to build a home and you have no contingency, and I mean no contingency, you are going to be up a creek. Like today, I met a wonderful client. I'm building a home for him. He wanted new rock on the front entrance of the home, but I realized there's 3 pillars outside that home. And I said, well, if we change the rock on the fascia of the home, that's going to change these pillars. Do you want to change these pillars? And he goes, what's that going to cost me? I told him, I'll tell you what, I think we can get it done at no additional cost, because I actually padded it because I knew it was going to come. And I knew that cost was going to be there. So when I talked with my mason, I actually got some costs for all that, but I didn't put that as a specification of what would be done in the whole job. But I knew that cost was going to be there. That's what you have to do. You really need to think forward what the real cost is. And that's a reality you have to face. That is something you don't want to skirt around, and it's too easily to ignore that. I don't want to think about that cost. I'll get to it when I can. Well, no, you got to think about it now. And so this is really the problem that creates bad general contractors, is that we don't see exactly what we want. We don't want to face real costs. And on top of that, we don't want to spend a little bit of money to get the actual budget, pay for the money to get the real cost of something. Think about that. Swallow that inside. Write this on a piece of paper. I will do everything I need to do to make sure I get the real cost of things and then write it on a piece of paper and eat that until it becomes sweet in your belly. You're a reality check. You're trying to get the truth of something out there. And don't try to live with the idea that somebody's going to tell you what you want to hear. It's easy to go out and find, especially in the market right now, it's easy to go out and find a framer who's going to frame for $9 a square foot when he could have gotten 12 or 14 a year and a half ago. It's easy. But are you the type of person that's going to go for $7 a square foot? Oh, I know. Can you do this for $7? You are barking up the wrong tree. You're going to actually push the situation to such a level that relationship's going to be stressed. Yeah, you can get bargains. Yeah, you can probably get a better quality right now. Cream rises to the top in markets like we have today. But be realistic, be honest, and know what the real cost is, and take the time to immerse yourself in that. And never forget the power of that dot, because it's quality control. And in my neck of the woods, in my industry, that dot is contingencies, having the right backup cost funds in your budget to do the fun things, to accommodate for increases, to accommodate for unknowns in your build. Keep that in mind. And with that, we'll start taking some questions. I have some products here I want to share with you tonight, but let's take some questions to get some of those out of the way. And if there's a break during the conversations, I want to talk about the penetration of your walls and some ideas on how to penetrate them with ventilation and whatnot. First question from Gizelman. I hope I said that right. Gizelman, thoughts on interior doors, ADA compliant if possible, or are you seeing mostly 2.6 or 2.8 as a standard? I'm seeing wider. In fact, I even see some 3.2s for wheelchair accessibility. I'm doing an ADA compliant mother-in-law room inside the house. It's not an ADA house, accessory dwelling unit. It's actually inside the home, especially in the bathrooms, right in the bathrooms. Don't be afraid. If you think you have a parent that's aging, don't be afraid to make that, the hallway should be at least 4 feet, 3.5 feet minimum, 4 feet ideal. And that door should be very, very wide, and make sure a wheelchair can get in there. When you think about it this way, when you're going through a door, you don't want the fingers to pinch against the door and to rub against, you don't want the knuckles to rub up against the door. And if they're rubbing up against the door, you know you're too small. Okay, next question. That's an interesting name. iWest Texel. iWest Texel. I hope I said that right. That's an L. I'm getting ready to purchase some land for $150,000 to build my home on after getting the owner's builder loan. And when my home is complete, how does it work to transfer that loan to a mortgage? If it's a construction to perm loan, that's the key phrase. Ask them if it's a construction to perm, meaning that when you're done with the build, it transfers automatically into a construction to perm, and it's a one-time financing. If you get that loan, that's more ideal. If you don't, then you're going to get what's called either hard money or construction money, and then you're going to lock in the permanent financing later on. But you kind of run risks with that because you don't know what the interest rates are going to be in 6 months or 12 months when you finish the home. Ask for construction to loan, construction to permanent loan on your home.
And then talk about the land checklist.
And yeah, make sure you go to the site, howtobuildyourownhome.com, and there's a free home site selection checklist. So before you purchase that lot, go through that checklist. I offer that for free. Download that now, please. Okay, next one. Okay, I want to talk about exiting the home with either condensate lines or some venting, stuff like that. And there's a lot of neat tricks that a lot of builders have learned to do. And it has to do with a lot of homes, especially owner builders and even some production builders, they don't ventilate the stove because it's not required in a lot of jurisdictions. And so therefore they don't press it. But it would also be a very, very good thing. Now, I didn't ventilate this particular area where I'm at. I've got the kitchen over here. I've got 10-foot ceilings and I've got a crankshaft window right next to the stove. And I also had a concrete wall up against the stove, so I was really limited on what I could really do. But if I were to go back in time, I would put a vent in the wall. And here's some great technologies that you can do. This here basically goes inside the wall like this, and it punctures through the wall, and you've got your ventilation that comes out here, and it's got a flap on it. You can't see the flap in there, but the air will come through that way, and there's a flap there that keeps, bugs and stuff like that. A lot of jurisdictions are going to ask for some meshing on here, especially if you have hornets and bees and birds and stuff like that. They don't want that getting in there. Even with a flap, they've seen that they sometimes can get up their nest. So they'll ask for, I know my county permitting department asked for that. They're going to ask for some mesh put on that right there. But the neat thing is that just goes right on the wall, and you've got some screws here. And once that's on there, you can literally put your trim all the way around that and paint it a different color, and it's in. And you can do that for dryer vents. You can do this for hood vents over your stove. But this often goes undone or not done right. And you want to have something where rain can't get in. I'm not really a fan of those flat vent systems because they have some flaps on there. And I've seen those during high winds push air back into the home. And as a result, you can have some problems. I like it when it's completely under like this, where the wind or rain can't get in that way. So that's one project here, something to think about. Another thing here is when you exit with your condensate lines coming out of the home, and this is for your air conditioning system, you have a condensate line that exits the home. Now, there's a lot of products you can use for that. This one here is what I use. This here is a roof jack. This is typically a pipe jack that goes on roofing, and you can actually trim it to a 3-inch pipe, or to a 2-inch pipe, or even to a 4-inch pipe. But the neat thing is this is now can be used if you point it the right way. If you can see how that is pointed in that direction. Well, typically, if it's on a roof, it goes on a roof like that. But I'm talking about actually putting it on a wall like that, and then you can have your condensate lines come right out of this pipe jack, and they fit nice and tight there, and now you've got better coverage. A long time ago, not too long ago, subcontractors would just punch a hole in the OSB and just stick everything out, and you'd have this huge gap there. It would just look terrible. Here, they just put this right over the pipe, and then they nail it down, and then they can literally stuck around it, and it looks nice and clean, and they can paint it a different color if they want. You can get these at a lot of supply houses. You can also get it at a lot of box stores as well, and it's aluminum, so it's bendable. And if you get aluminum, it's not going to rust. This here happens to be aluminum. There's another product out there, and I'll show you the name. And it's just come out. It's just a new one where they actually mount this to the wall, and your condensate lines go through here. Now, this would be for a mini split, for a single mini split system. And it would just, all your condensate lines would come out of here, and this would get punched into the wall, put on the wall, screwed into the wall. Now they've got a clean access for that, and all your stucco and trim just comes on the outside. And the neat thing is they have kind of a wrapping that can actually come around the condensate lines for added insulation. And this is a product called AirX. I have a supplier who gave me this for free, and I thought it was really cool. I've been putting it on some of my homes. It's AirX Pro Systems Kit. Again, AirX Pro Systems Kit. And they make them for, this here's for a small mini split, but you can also make them for a larger, full-on, maybe a 4-head or 5-head, a split system that would have a hole that'd be much bigger. But the neat thing is it cleans things up. It's so that you can actually have nice trim around those exits. That's both for the air ventilation and also for the exits for your condensate lines. There's a lot of stuff out there, but think about the penetration of your home, especially on the roof, but especially on the wall system, for ventilation and also for protection of lines that are coming outside the home. There's even some of these that are even smaller, like this, for just a 1-inch for actual power. And I'm actually doing that on a remodel for a client, because we're going to come out with a little pedestal for power, tap into that pedestal with pipe that goes right into the house. So there's ways to do things cleanly. And just think about these things, because you can put it on right after framing's done, puncture the hole, and people know where the subcontractor should know where to punch their hole, where to come out with their condensate lines, power lines, ventilation, stuff like that. Just some things I wanted to share with you tonight. Let's see if we have any questions here.
Awesome.
Mr. Independent, what do you think about building a home with unvented insulation attic? It depends on your environment. If you're in a very high humid environment, I wouldn't recommend it. I'm a big fan of ventilation. I'm a big fan of leaving the home breathe. I have not seen damage to a home that breathes. I've seen more damage to a home that is sealed up so tight that they didn't seal it up properly. Therefore, because of the cold condensing surfaces that occur, water can build up in walls and water can build up in the attic. So I wouldn't recommend it. But I do know that there are some high altitude, very cold environments where you don't get over 90 degrees during the summer. It's going to be cold most of the time. And in some rare situations, I would seal up the attic, but in most situations, I wouldn't. So.
Okay, this is a
two-part question. Okay, Brack Expressionist, Brack Builder here. I have very old wood siding, a 1950 two-bedroom, 1,000 square foot home. I want to replace fascia and put a temporary 6 to 12 month covering over siding until I get the roof recovered. What's the best material? Some kind of vinyl product, and how best to attach to siding. So basically, you want to tear off the old siding, then cover the sheeting with a product until you're able to get the roof done, and then get the siding that's there. Just some Tyvek might do, but I would double layer it. It's not going to be a very difficult thing to double layer that. If you're going to do brick on it, the brick layers, you're going to put another layer of something behind that, or even stucco. They'll put another double layer or even a triple layer of what's kind of like a semi-tar paper that they'll put behind there anyway. But the trick is, if the wind is in your area that's pretty bad, you're going to want to make sure it's tied down very well. And typically the staple doesn't work. And I've seen it happen over and over again. If you want it to stay on there, I use roof tabs. I know it sounds weird, but roof tabs are about that wide fat, just got a plastic cap on the top of it. And then I put roof tabs on it, and it holds it down. And it doesn't get in the way of a future siding or stucco or something like that. But a good Tyvek material would be well worth it. And then just talk with your local building department, because they're going to, every area has its own environment. And some areas really want moisture to come through, and some want air to come through. And a lot of the material that we put on the siding is designed for your particular area, because sometimes we want moisture out, sometimes we want air in. It's really different. So just talk with your building official and find out from them what they would recommend. But there's a roofing product that's called Raptor. You can just type in Raptor roofing underlayment, and it's probably the most affordable and the longest lasting product you can put on your roof before you actually put your roof product. And it can actually withstand a whole winter of snow. I use it on all my jobs. But it's mainly manufactured back east. A lot of the supply houses have it, but check out Raptor underlayment for roofing, those keywords, and you'll see it. It's not quite out west yet, but I order it in pallets. But I order it because it's safe. You can walk on it. You're not going to trip. You're not going to slide. Even if it's got snow on it, it has a good grip to it. It's not quite impenetrable with water. That's what I found. But it's safe, and it's going to last, and it's not going to tear up. And when there is a rainstorm, most of it really just sheets off, but it does breathe. And that's one of the reasons why I like it, is because it does breathe a little bit. So.
Another two-part question. Oops,
Okay.
Okay, sorry,
two-part question.
Right.
Valerie Huff, we are in the planning stages to see if we can own or build in the next year or two with me as the very inexperienced GC. We are very interested in omni-block builds, but was wondering if you had advice on how to budget for that kind of a build. Is it similar to regular comps you would use or no? It is. It depends on your area and how costly your framing is. If your framing is a little higher than in most areas, then the omni-block should come in at the same. If your framing costs are typically lower, then the omni-block will come in just a little bit higher. That's what I found. The key to omni-block is it's moving across the country quite nicely. There's a lot of manufacturing plants all over the place, and finding a structural mason who can lay the block and will be willing to be a patient for it. And a structural mason is a person who can actually lay block around a window and have a bond beam above the window and above the door. That's really a structural mason, and they're familiar with that. You find a structural mason who's not afraid of it, you'll be on top of it. So good luck with that. David B, with production builders buying down interest, it's obvious they are charging more for houses when that it's costing them. How can you figure that in an owner builder's estimate? That's a good question. And I think they're buying down the interest to keep their prices high, like you said they are.
Just to keep their flow going.
Yeah, that's a hard question. The best thing that I would say is that if you have a feeling that that's what they're doing, then add another percentage of interest on there. And that I'm overly cautious when it comes to that kind of thing, when it comes to budgeting. If I know there's some hanky-panky in there and they're saying that they're going to buy our interest down to 4.5%, but I know the going rate is 5.5%. So therefore, they are making up the difference by increasing costs in another spot. So just add that percentage back into the equation, and then it will tell you what your cost per square foot is. And then you're going to be safe. Don't try to find the exact line item cost. You're not going to find it. Find a good approximation and then add a percentage on top of that for contingency.
Don't compare to production builders either.
What's that?
I wouldn't compare to production builders.
Yeah. And I wouldn't compare to production builders. I'd compare to custom builders or other owner builders, and if you can do that. But custom builders are better to find the actual cost is. Production builders, they're buying the cheapest stuff at bulk in big, huge quantities.
Sometimes they have in-house.
Sometimes they have in-house everything. I just walked through a home the other day ago. I won't mention the builder, but a friend of mine had some damage done to a home, and he asked me to come look at it. And I was flabbergasted. I was just absolutely flabbergasted at the lack of quality and the lack of good materials put on the home. And there's a lot of bad production builders, and they sit behind a spreadsheet and they're looking at costs all day long. They never really look at the quality of what they're building. And so it's really hard to measure up against that. And I wish appraisers could come in, and I wish builders were rated. Wouldn't it be cool if builders were rated on their quality?
I could tell them about one of the production builders if you want.
Yeah, why don't you say something?
Okay.
Go ahead. My wife's going to say something.
You're going to have to do your
Okay.
sound. I don't know if you can hear me. Okay, so I had a client, and she had inherited some money, and so she was buying. That sounds weird. Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay, so she was buying some investment properties, and she bought one. Well, she ended up buying 3 in one big production builder. And from the first one she bought to the third one, because it was 3 or 4 months in between, there was major difference. And then the project manager even said the next group is going to be less than that. Like they're cutting on, instead of a 6-inch, trim, baseboard trim, they were shrinking that. They were taking off the knobs. I cannot think today. The hardware on all the cabinets to save money, and It was incredible. They were just cutting and cutting and cutting every place they could. So she has 3 rental properties, and all 3 have different things
Features.
because they kept cutting back.
Wow. Yeah, it's I would not want to be a builder that's constantly cutting. It's not fun, and you end up getting to that point, that threshold, where it's a serious impact on the efficiency of the home, a serious impact on the lasting quality of the home, and it's a serious impact on the lasting value. So there's less maintenance. And I've seen builders do this, and I don't know why, but it's just the whole nature of the cookie cutter mentality of building. That's why I love. I call myself a custom builder, a custom luxury builder, and an affordable housing builder. But I'm an affordable housing builder in a really different arena. I really shrink the home so I can increase the quality and maintain the quality of the home. And I get to that footprint that's going to be an easy build. I get to that footprint that's going to make things more efficient for everybody else. And then I'm kind of a sneaky bastard on top of that. I won't mention any more things I do, but I know what I can cut out to maintain the highest degree of value I can in the home. And I just don't, I'm not sure if builders do that. It's hard. It's hard to do that because it takes a little more brain power to figure out. Let's continue with some other questions. The real Mike Ali. Wow, that's interesting. Mike Ali. How to incorporate a water generator for home use? A water generator. What is a water generator? Is that like a water that's generating power from a local creek from water?
Is it water generator? What?
Yeah, what is a water generator?
What's the question again? Sorry. How to incorporate a water generator to use for home use? Okay, water generator.
Yeah, I think it might. He's probably talking. I've seen people do this where they have some stream or river or some constant flowing water real close to their home. And so they're able to tap into that. There's these little generators they can put in that creek, and then they can generate power. Sometimes it's sufficient power. Sometimes it's hardly any power at all. But it's really the battery pack. If that's what you're talking about, I'm not sure. Oh,
water turbines.
Yep, that's what I'm talking about. That's a turbine. It depends on the flow rate and what the flow rate of the water is and how much generated power you're going to get from that. And then keep in mind, the power has to go one of 2 directions. If you don't have a battery pack, it's going to go in and supply whatever it can inside the home. And then if it's not utilized in the home, it's got to go back out to the power company. And then they have to take it because it has to go somewhere. Power has to go somewhere. It's kind of like water. If you spill water on the ground, well, it's going to leak. It's going to eventually seep to its level. Water has to continue, or power has to continue to go until the power company can take it and redirect it where it needs to go. Or you have a battery pack system. And not sure if you have that. But if you have a flow rate, it's something that's coming through your property quite a bit. Yeah, that's something I would investigate, definitely. Okay.
Sorry.
Brack Expressionist, Brack Builder here. For owner builder construction insurance, is it something I can add to my existing USA home insurance policy? What is the best resource? Yeah, I would contact your insurance provider and ask them if they can do a rider that would add the build of the home to the policy, but make sure you have the sufficient coverage. So like in me, I have to have $1 million on several different line items. That I pay a heavy fee for that. I pay almost $12,000 a year for my insurance. It goes up and down based upon the market and based upon what I project I will build for the year. And so if you have your budget and it's in store, they're going to ask for that. They may also ask for some features. And if they're very, very sophisticated, they're going to ask if you have a fire hydrant on site. They're going to ask how close the water line is on site. They're going to also ask if you gather the insurance from all of your subcontractors. And if you do that, then they know that, and they may audit you. They may audit you. I audit it every year. as a builder. And I have my insurance policy. They call me up. Can you send me insurance policies on 3 subcontractors? And we'll just give you random subcontractors. And I will grab the insurance policies on them and send them. They go, great, you passed your audit. So pretend like you're going to be audited, even though you may not, and make sure you gather that from all your subcontractors. Okay. I did see you have listed someone who does provide insurance in many states. Thanks again. He's a great guy, Summit Insurance. He tours the country, speaks at a lot of builder conferences. He specializes in insurance for builders. And so I got his permission, and he now can service just about anyone throughout the country. And a great company, and they can they'll ask for some specifics, and then give them the specifics, and then you're on your way.
USAA is a good insurance. Though.
Yeah, USSA is a good.
USAA.
My wife says they're a good company. Okay. Okay. Hello. I was wondering. This is EM. I was wondering if appraisers include all of the site work, utilities, well and septic, etc., in their appraisal report. They're not going to include that. They're going to look at your budget. Now, I'm going to give you 2 things to think about when it comes to appraisers and how to best deal with them. Okay. Inside the program I have, in the download section, there's specifications for appraiser, okay? And you want to put your name on there and your address. And I gave you a sample list. It's not the accurate list for you, but it's a sample list of things that you're going to do to that home. 2x6 construction, net and blow, the HVAC system, what kind of flooring are you going to do, what kind of truss system. Really be as detailed as you can. And you mention high quality truss system, high quality this, you just put it all in there, okay? And then you also put the total square footage, and you give them the plans and the bathrooms and all that kind of stuff. And then you give them the budget. Now you make sure you pad the budget. You make sure you have your contingency in the budget. Because that appraiser is not about to appraise for something less than it's actually budgeted for. That's why the budget I have for you in the program at howtobuildyourownhome.com is the most detailed budget in the market out there. There's no other program that has a budget like that. You give that budget to the appraiser, you're on really solid ground because you have it backed up. Now, a smart appraiser will ask for 3 estimates so we can look at those estimates, random estimates, to make sure that they line up with those, with the budget line items. I've had 2 appraisers ask for that, all right? Most of them in most areas are not that sophisticated, but every once in a while they might ask for that, especially if it's a commercial job or a very, very high-end job. But for the most part, specifications, tell them what the budget is. I need you to appraise that. Right. But if they don't know what your budget is and that you just tell them the plans and they have a rough approximation of what's going to go in the home, they're going to base your appraisal on what the market comparison is without any factoring in of what your cost is. New home construction is a higher price or a higher valuation in the appraisal than existing homes. But the only way you get that and push for that is when they have the budget and the specifications for that. Okay.
No more questions, so start.
Okay. That's really, and that's a trick. There's a specifications for appraisal, and there's also specifications for lending. And sometimes they're the same, sometimes they're not. But in the download folder at How to Build Your Own Home, just go to the download section and you'll see that letter. There's also, if you're having trouble with possibly not getting financing from a lender, take that letter, that's a letter to lenders, take that to the bank and give them that letter. And I actually have it, I think it's in Word format. So you can actually put your name in there and all that and take that to the bank. I've had several students just mention that they were able to get lending because they were enrolled in the program. They were informed and they had a lot of things lined out for them, and they take that budget into the bank, and the banks are actually impressed because it's so detailed. Now, keep in mind that the budget I have is 3 pages. So the first 2 pages are the actual budget with all the contingencies, etc. And the 3rd page of that budget, you look at the very bottom, is the draw sheets, the actual draws. And you can actually itemize each one of the draws based upon where it is in the budget. and it will tell you a working total of what's been spent on the home and how much has been spent in each line item. So that's how powerful that budget is. And you take that into a bank and they're going to say, wow, this is pretty organized. They're going to really like that. It's going to help out quite a bit. Any questions? What time do we have?
No more questions. That's it. And we've got 15 minutes.
Okay. I wanted to talk about, it has to do with how much where's the best place to save on your home? Okay. If you don't know any trades at all, and I've mentioned this a couple of times, if you have absolutely no experience in any trades at all, the best place you can save in your home is to keep the site clean and to haul off your own trash. If you do have a truck or pickup, or if you're able to get a trailer, hauling off your own trash is a huge savings. Right now, I can spend anywhere from $5,000 to $8,000 hiring a dumpster to come out and empty the dumpster, take it off and dump it and bring back an empty 6-yard or 15-yard dumpster. That's a lot of money. Now, if I were doing my own home, I would have my own trailer and I would drop off my trailer at a job site and I would just empty that and I would pay the $60 or $40 to empty it at the local landfill. That to me is the best savings you can have by getting control of that. And I'm very, very cautious about my waste and how much it costs to eliminate waste from a job site. And I've seen jobs that I know in California, in some landfills, they charge $200, $300, $400 just to dump material. And that could push your dump fees to close to $10,000 in some markets. Now that is $10,000 that is not going into the build of your home. No studs, no drywall, no paint, no nothing. That is just waste, okay? If you can get control of that and manage that to some degree in a little better way, and making sure that you're on a job site and you're controlling your costs, all the better. That's going to be really, really powerful. Also, take for example, all the lumber that is really trash lumber that cannot be used for anything, and it could be this small or anything under 2 feet. If it's under 2 feet, it's pretty much trash, can't be used. Throw it all into a pile and don't take that to the dump. Just let it sit there in a pile and keep an eye out for people in your neighborhood, in your community that need firewood. Now, I do that, and I can literally get rid of 2 truckloads of lumber that's unused. Rather than going to the landfill, I just throw it in my truck and I take it to a lady's house down the street from here and another one a couple blocks over here. And they literally keep their homes kept warm in the winter with that firewood. And so I don't have to go to the landfill for that. I just throw it in my truck and I drop it off, and they're appreciative, and I'm thinking of them, and makes you feel good. That there is, if I were to take it to landfill, that could be $60 or $120, and sometimes much higher in some other areas. But instead of that, it's going and it's being utilized, and that's pure conservation of mass and energy. And if you can think like that, all the power to you. And really get a handle on waste. And if you can, then guys are not going to just throw stuff willy-nilly. You tell them, even if it has nails on it, if it's just a certain size, throw it over here. And if it's too big, cut it down to fit over that size. If you know you're not going to use that wasted lumber, just don't put any OSB or any glue lambs or any LVL material, because it's got formaldehyde in it, and you can't burn that in a fireplace. But your dimensional lumber, your 2x4s, 2x6s, and all that, you can burn that. That's quite a bit of waste. I don't care what size home you have, it's going to be a lot. On the average home of about 2,000 square feet, I can fill up 2 truckloads. All right, that's about 2 cords of lumber on a typical, when you go out in the forest and you fill up your truckload, the whole bed of that truckload, and it goes up to the top of the cab, just barely top of the cab, that's considered a cord of lumber. I think it's actually to the top of the bed, that's considered a cord. And so I literally can have 2 cords of lumber waste, give to people who need it to keep their homes warm. And if you're building in the Dakotas and the East Coast and the far north of the country, I'm telling you, you know what I'm talking about. That lumber is valuable, and you don't want to waste that. So be on top of that.
He's asking the siding question up at the beginning.
You just want to talk to the siding manufacturer to see if they can use that and if it's the proper for that. You don't want somebody who's can say like
What is wrap?
Raptor is a roofing underlayment product. I wouldn't see anything wrong with it. I love Raptor. It's 3 feet long. It's easier to manage. The Tyvek wrapping is going to be a 10-foot roll, and so it's going to be very hard to manage. If you can go up 3 feet and overlap at 6 inches or 3 inches, go up another 3 feet, and then you can nail tab that in. That's going to be great. It's a great product for it. I wouldn't see anything wrong with it. What I like about it is it's a 10 square roll. So when you go into a Home Depot or any box store or even a supply house, I want you to keep something in mind. The underlayment for a roof is typically broken down into squares. Okay, a square is a 10 by 10 section. Now the Raptor comes in a 10 square roll, which means a single roll will cover 1,000 square feet. 1,000 square feet divided by 10 is 10 squares. Okay, and so that covers a lot of ground. Now you just don't want to use tar paper. Tar paper is the worst product you can put on your home, by far the worst product. It tears in the wind. It has no elasticity after a period of time. And typically it can only last for maybe a week. Once the sun hits it, it starts to dry up that tar, and it's absolutely terrible. It's the worst product you can put on your roof, on your home. So don't go cheap. And then the worst thing is it's 5 times the weight. And then a single roll barely gives you 3 square, maybe 3 or 4 square. That's about it. Not even that much sometimes. It's like a square and a half. It's thick and it's got oil in it, but it rips and tears in the wind. But a good synthetic underlayment for roofing will give you between 8 and 10 square, and you can cover a whole roof with just 3 or 4 rolls. And it wouldn't be bad to use some of that on a siding. Again, manufacturers might agree or disagree with regard to that, but it does let your home breathe. The Raptor does have a breathing quality to it, which is what I'm all in favor of to some degree. Again, it's different for every. If I was building in Louisiana, I'd be building completely different than I'd be building here. In fact, if I was building in Louisiana or even Mississippi, I'd be making my home breathe a lot more than I make my homes breathe here. So, any other questions here? Okay. I want everyone to think about really what's happening this year. And right now is a really good time to just take a pause, think about where the economy is going. And I'm going to put 2 numbers in your head. Okay. And why I think being an owner builder for the next 4 years is probably going to be the best time to be an owner builder for a very, very long time. By 2031, according to the Congressional House Budget Office with the federal government, we will be paying all of the tax revenue that goes into the federal government will be used to pay the interest on the debt. That's by the year 2031. Right now, we have over $200 trillion in unfunded liabilities, which means that Social Security, Medicare, you name it, all of that is upwards of $200 trillion. So that means that we don't have funding for that. This is just money that's printed out of thin air, and they would print the money and then sell bonds and securities to foreign nations and have other countries carry our debt for us. Well, that's dropping down significantly. Those foreign nations are not buying our debt anymore. So if nobody's buying our debt, and then we can't supply for the unfunded liabilities and Medicare and Social Security and all that, and we really don't have the tax revenue to support that, and then on top of that, all of our tax revenue is just going off to pay off the interest, you can see that it's like an immovable object faces an impassable something. I forget the phrase of that, but it's going to come to a head. And I don't mean to be gloomy here. I just mean to be realistic. Okay. And when these things are glooming out there in the market and in the finance world, that's something to note. So that's why I strongly suggest not having a high budget, a high debt on your home. Stay as conservative as you possibly can. getting that land paid off, utilizing the land for the down payment on the home, and keeping your loan as low as possible. Now, every good financial advisor would say you don't want to borrow more than 28% of your total income to manage that debt. Well, I would think about lowering that. If you can get closer to 25 or 20% of your salary to manage that loan, then you're in a safer position. Just be wary, be a watchman on the tower, study what's going on. I've given a lot of posts on this. Recommend reading The Great Taking by David Hedge or David Webb. I think it's David Webb. Just type in The Great Taking, go to his website, listen to him, read his book. He's really talking about what's going on. A lot of people are in the know now about this. If your financial advisor doesn't know what's going on, I had to listen to a great story by Andy Schectman. Andy Schectman is the owner and president of Miles Franklin. He deals with finances, and he deals with money, and he deals with precious metals and whatever. He just gave a great story on Sunday night where he went and spoke to some very, 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 very wealthy people, educated people that own a grocery chain on the East Coast, upwards of over 100 grocery stores. And they asked him to come to their office and talk. He spoke to them, and these people, even though they were very, very sophisticated and very learned, they deal with, hundreds of millions of dollars every year in buying and selling of groceries. They did not know what's going on. They did not know about the Great Taking. They did not know about Brexit. They didn't know about the interest rates. They didn't know about the unfunded liabilities. They didn't know about a lot of the stuff. And it actually shocked him. That educated of a people did not really know what's going on. Well, your owner builders, I'm telling you, you need to be aware of what's going on, about the real finance of things, the real economy of things. And it's an opportunity now to be an owner builder where there may not be an opportunity. I'm old enough to see where banks literally shut down unless you're a builder and unless you have 30 and 40% down. I've seen that in my lifetime. And we could come back to that. You could see banks putting all kinds of demands on owner builders. Okay, if you're going to be an owner builder, we want you to have 30% down. And then on top of that, you can't do any of it. You have to sub it all out. You never know. When the economy gets to be scary and scarce with a lot of liquidity in the market, they put more restrictions on things. Well, I see more restrictions coming in the future than right now currently that are not there. But I see restrictions coming. I can't tell you exactly what's coming. It's just my gut feeling based upon experience. So if you're thinking about building and you're really serious and you know it has to happen, you know you need to do it, the next couple of years are the best opportunity to do it. Before, you never know what. I lived through a double-digit inflation. I lived through double-digit interest rates back in the 70s, around 16, 18%. Now, can you imagine trying to build with that? And if you knew that was coming, maybe in a year or 2 or 3, you'd probably want to get on your horse to do something now. I can't say for certain what's coming, but I know that it has happened in the past. There's no reason why stuff like that can't happen in the future. So be aware, be overly cautious, be smart, be conservative, and be wise with your funding and how much debt you're willing to take out. Question. We'll go to Morgan Adams. Just wanted to say thank you for all your videos and website. It is so informative and very helpful for me as I'm designing our home. Thank you. Do you have my phone? I had an email that came this morning.
It's on airplane.
Yeah, I had an email that came from a student that was really, really cool. I think I might have it here. I think my wife got it here too. Yeah, this came from a student. I think I can read some of this. This is from a student. Student writes, it's official. I think this student's listening now, so I won't mention the name. But as a proud owner builder is now in business in North Carolina for 2024 and gives the address of the street. When the startup says, here's what's interesting. I put together their brand of their build, and they got their email. They even got pens. They got a yard sign and business cards. magnets, t-shirts, and writing pens, all in the name of the business that they created for being an owner builder. I now believe she thinks I'm serious. So now his wife is thinking, oh, he's serious now. He's really going to build this home, because he's actually putting it all in his name, creating a whole name as a builder, and is calling yourself a builder. Don't call yourself an owner builder. Call yourself a builder and carry yourself like that, and people will take you seriously. Anyway, he says, I'm even to the point where I am listening to you throughout the day, having you ride along with me in my truck, visiting suppliers and coming over to the home to build site. That's cool. It's nice that I'm there, even if you're just listening to an old podcast. And it goes on and it starts taking notebooks and a flow chart. And he made an interesting comment that he took the flow chart that I have, and now he's putting it into a flow chart that works for him. And that's great. If you haven't downloaded that flow chart, it's in the self-managed package. It's several pages long. It's very, very detailed, and it fits for a slab-on-grade stem wall and a walkout basement. And so it helps you see what's coming. It's very detailed. One of these days, I'd like to put it on a bifold plastic cardstock or something, but I'm always improving it. And if you're one of my students in the self-managed package, and if you want to get in touch with me about a specific topic, go to that topic and message me, and I can reply back. I can't keep up with the YouTube anymore. I was answering 30 and 40 and 60 messages daily. Now it's even more than that. So if you're in the program, that's where I'm cataloging and describing all the questions that students have. And the neat thing is those questions are tied to specific modules, specific areas of the build. So now when they go through the program, they can see the conversation I've had with a lot of other students. So please use that if you haven't used that at all.
Oh, we got more questions, right?
We can take a couple questions real quick.
Let's see.
We'll take a couple questions and we'll end the night. Honey Caffeina, that's a great name. Question, would you recommend polymer modified asphalt shingles for a roof in Michigan, plus collecting rainwater off these shingles? Michigan has a lot of rain, so polymer modified. I don't know. I know Michigan, it depends on how close you are to water. If you're close to a water body, then I would stay away from something that could actually rust. But the actual asphalt shingles, if it's an architectural shingle that's a higher grade, ask how many years it has a warranty for. I wouldn't go for anything less than 25 years. I know you can possibly push for higher than that, but you want to push for a warranty that can last that long. And then what's your wind like and your moisture like in your environment? If you have a lot of wind, high wind, and if you have a lot of moisture, then I might think metal, but that's just me. Two-part question. Paul T. We are doing a significant remodel in Seattle, and the framers really are motivated to get going on the work. It is a wet and rainy time, the first part of the year. What are your tips? The remodel involves taking off the roof and adding second level. Good question. Good question. It's possible that I'd have to look at the plans, but here's what you're looking at. You want to gut as much as you can inside, get it all done. But I wouldn't put any new timber in it just yet. If you're going to redo the floorboards, you might want to wait for that. Get everything gutted and clean and pulled out, so it's almost like a toothpick standing home with maybe the sheeting still on it, and then go after that roof. I wouldn't try to do all the fixes inside unless you're doing a whole new cutting into the roof and doing dormers and things like that. If it's just a new roof and you're getting new sheeting on it, they can literally, they might even be able to resheet over that. If the sheeting is in good standing, you can just resheet over it, and then they can put a dry-in material, which is a synthetic layer underlayment, which is the Raptor stuff I was talking about. Then the home's protected. Then you can go to town on the inside and everything else you need. But it all depends on whether or not that roof is cut into and it's going to be a different roof, or if it's just going to be resheeted. If it's going to be resheeted, that can be done really quickly within a 2-day, 3-day window. and they can throw plastic on it, a tarp on it if rain's coming, but try to do it so that you can schedule it so you have a window of opportunity. You want to limit the amount of rain that's going to come inside there. Now, an OSB can get wet. Typically, it's rated to get wet up to 3 times. So I wouldn't worry about it if it gets wet once or twice. That's not a problem. What you want to do is avoid the sustained moisture where you got a rainstorm coming and it's going to last for 2-3 weeks like you can get in Seattle. You want to try to time it so that you can get it done really as quick as you can. All right. Hope that answers your question. Okay. We'll take one more question. We'll end the night. Okay. Hi, Keith. I just had to cancel a project because the city was going to make me underground some power poles in an adjacent alley. I was even tapping into them as there's a pole already on the property. So they're making you go underground. What's the second part?
Right here.
Have you ever been forced to drop off property improvements you weren't even utilizing? I'll do off-property improvements. Yeah, I've dealt with that, and it's not fun. And it's where the city is forcing you to do improvements that they don't want to do themselves. If it's after the meter and the utility company comes in,
And they're not tapping into it. That's weird. If they're not tapping into it.
we're not tapping into. I'd push back on that.
Yeah.
If you're not tapping into it, I'd go back and say, hey,
Yeah.
that's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
I had a job I did some bid on. And we had to put a whole new fire line 125 feet up the street because we're putting in a new subdivision. So I can see that because it's supplying for the subdivision, and they're forcing me as the builder to install that line, all the valves in that line, and redo the curb and gutter that I'm going to destroy to get that line up there because it's servicing the client that I was working with. But if it's not servicing you at all, this is ridiculous. And I do some pushback on that. One more and then we'll end the night. Do you have to have a LLC to call yourself an owner builder? Not necessarily. You could be a handyman, but that handyman is going to be an LLC. LLC is cheap to form in just about any state. Talk to a financial advisor, even an attorney if you need to. I'm not one of those people, but it's not hard to set up an LLC. It's not hard at all. So I wouldn't let that scare you. You just have to immerse yourself in it. Type in new business corporation setup in your state, and you'll see the main state, typically for your state. Make sure it says a .gov at the end of the domain, and that should be the place for your state to register for a new LLC. And it shouldn't cost you hardly any. They don't put a huge price on that because they want new business. That means more revenue to them for the most part. So yes, don't get scared of it. Immerse yourself in it and figure it out. It's not that hard. I know it's scary, but it's going to be, and then you have that LLC for the rest of your life. And then if you have any kind of business, I don't care if you're raising eggs or something, you can write off a portion of that home against your income because you're using that portion of the home for the business. You know, that's something that everybody knows. You can use part of your home for that. Talk to a financial advisor because I'm not one.
A CPA.
Or CPA. So anyway, we'll end it right there with the questions. We could go on for quite some time. This was a great night. We'll do this again every Thursday from 5 to 6 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. I think I'm the only builder that has a live chat that's out there. I love it. I learn a lot from students. It's been a pleasure. You guys take care, and we'll see you guys next week. Make sure you like, subscribe, go to howtobuildyourownhome.com. And if you haven't taken any of the courses, please take that First Steps course. And if you're really thinking about being an owner builder, that First Steps course is going to help you out a lot. Okay, you guys take care.